You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Center, this is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is Sparta!
All your base are belong to us.
It's a trap 9000!
Stop corrupting all of us.
Leave Benny alone!
Leroy Dragon!
Objection!
The balls are inert.
Time to
And now it begins.
All right, hello everybody. This is Brin here for Nerd to Know Media on Phoenix 92.5 FM, streaming across YouTube, Twitch, and a whole other bunch of services. Thanks for joining us. And how's everybody? Introduce yourself, guys.
Hey guys, Darragh.
Oh, is it me next?
80 you're next.
Apparently she needs no introduction. It's Mannequin Blue.
Katie.
Hey, and I'm Kev.
Hi, Kev. So, how's everyone's week been?
Yeah, good. Busy.
Good.
Yeah.
It has been.
I don't know. I'm late to the boat. I'm late to the train on this one. I finished Doom Eternal today. Guys, Doom is good.
You notice how
the Doom is good. The Doom is great. We sweat our will as of this days.
the sad part about Doom Eternal, right? I bought it when it came out. I got the collector's edition, and it's sitting in a box. I have no time. I have no time. You know what, right? I it's annoying. Everyone's going, I'm doing so much, during the lockdown. I'm like, I'm working, lads. Like, I don't get time. I've never been busier. So, yeah. Although I did discover, speaking of a Bethesda game, I did discover Prey finally. Prey is like System Shock that I never knew existed. It's fantastic. So
that's not the one where the monster is like drawers and stuff, is it?
Yeah, it's that little black goop thing that turns into just mundane objects.
Yeah. It's like this black goop that like attacks you, but it turns into like a chair, and you have to start hitting the chair with a wrench. It's really fun. It's actually really good. And for some reason, I just completely missed it until recently. I'm like, oh, well, that's great.
Most people, I heard about it just in passing. And it was at a Bethesda conference, but like a lot of people, it flew under a lot of people's radars.
It was a bit of a sleeper success story because it's been one of those games that like has slowly but surely gained traction. Like I remember seeing outside Xbox do a thing with it before, and that was like literally the only time I'd seen anything about it. Like it's one of those games where I think it's one of those games where it seems really divisive. People either really love it or they really, really hate it. I know some people hate it because they think the stealth in it is terrible.
It is.
Well, how do you be stealthy when you're hiding from a chair?
That's true.
This is it.
Sit on the chair.
when I first started playing it, because obviously, it does have a big kind of Stanley Parable-esque twist open, and then you kind of get into the game.
Stanley Parable.
Yeah, it feels really
Stanley.
It feels really like the Stanley Parable, and then it kind of gets into the game, and you're like, "Whoa, this is like really Bioshocky," and then it goes, "Whoa, this is really System Shocky." And yeah, I would say, look, if you haven't played it, I'm about 3 hours in. I've really enjoyed it. So I would say, look, if you're a fan of any of those games, definitely pick it up. I got it for like €10, I think.
It's been on sale.
Yeah, it's really cheap. I would say pick that one up. It's great. Like I haven't played Doom Eternal yet. Kev, I'll give you the floor to gush on Doom Eternal.
It's so it's so. It's hard to find the words. It's just so fluid. It's so fast. It's so fun. Brutal as all be damned.
Yeah,
like that's all off the bat. Like it is exactly the sort of cathartic, like uber violence that I needed after playing The Last of Us, trying to have dramatic uber violence. And I'm like,
see, that was your first mistake. You shouldn't have played Last of Us 2. That game is not fun.
Not during the pandemic.
It's the worst time possible.
I felt it was my journalistic duty as a Sony fanboy to give it a shot. I have thoughts on that, but that's for another day. But yeah, like just Doom is like where The Last of Us kind of like dwelled on me, like, oh, you just slit this guy's throat and you got to deal with the consequences of that. No, Doom guy's just pushing orifices of one monster into the orifice of another monster. So one of the glory kills, he just smashes zombie's head into his thing and it goes like this. It's great. And all the while just with this like crushing death metal soundtrack that Mick Thompson or Mick Gordon? One Slipknot's guitar player and the other's the composer for the Doom soundtrack.
Mick Gordon, who also does the soundtrack for pretty much everything Bethesda. He does a really good soundtrack for Prey as well, actually. It's like really atmospheric and like, while Doom is very metal, this is very pulsating. It's great. Like, he's a phenomenal composer.
But it's so much fun to play. And like, it's not even that long. I've had it for a couple of weeks, but like, it's only about 15 odd hours long when you're actually playing it.
I still haven't got a chance to finish the first one, to my shame.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as that because like because I've got games on PC, PS4, and Switch, and it's on the Switch. I just keep hopping between different platforms, going, "I'll play this for a bit," and then I stop playing altogether. So
it's like that's why even though I have a lot of PC games, if I'm going to sit down and play it, it's going to be a PS4 purely because I actually have trained myself to be like, no, this is when you stop doing things and you play the game on the PS4. Because if you're anything else, you're kind of like, oh, I'll watch this or I'll work on this or something. And then
it's that separation.
Yeah.
Like it's why I never got into playing PC games. It's because like, well, no, this isn't where I play games. This is where I do everything else.
That's fair. That makes perfect sense.
This isn't the game box.
Yeah, that makes exactly.
I genuinely forgot that you could play games on computers until a few years ago. Where I was like, oh yeah, you can play games on this. This is
does
great.
Steam not constantly remind you every time it updates? Every time you open your computer?
You knocked that off. You knocked that.
I'm talking about my life pre-Steam. It didn't.
Oh, fair.
Like this was a whole other world. Because just purely because one of my friends went like, "Oh, do you want a loan of my copy of Mass Effect?" And I was like, "Well, I don't already have a game console." It's like, "Oh no, it's for PC." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you can play games on PC. I forgot about that."
Yeah.
Like
it's weird though, right? Because obviously last week, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was talking about the Mac I got, and I had to go in and get the battery repaired, right? And then it's like, oh, the hard drive is like 64 gigs or something. And I'm like, oh man, that's nothing, And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is a Mac. I don't need a big hard drive because you can't game on this. And then well, you wouldn't anyway. Like I usually boot Linux off it, but you pop in a thumb drive and you can do stuff off it that way, and like you can have a 128 gig SD card in it, And it's just weird for the first time owning a computer. I'm like in a long time where I'm in the boat going, oh yeah, I can't actually play games on this, but that's okay because it's
and then you're liberating.
Yeah, it's weird. It is very liberating. You're like, oh, I don't have to install Deus Ex on this.
Yeah, and then Darragh, you'll find that Deus Ex runs natively on Linux.
Why do you tell me this? Why do you tell me this?
Because
you're a bad man.
Because
you're a bad man.
I need you to experience the pain of Linux gaming. So
no, I wouldn't. That's why I wouldn't do it. I just put Windows on it.
There's a couple of things on that because there's Steam have their own compatibility layer for Windows games. Basically, what a compatibility layer is, like it tricks the operating system into thinking it's a different operating system. So, like, trying to think of a way to say this, like it'd be like tricking one car. It'd be like tricking a Fiat into thinking it's a Mercedes.
Yeah,
that kind of a thing. And basically, what they've said, because they've set this up themselves, it's opened up the floodgates of what is possible to be played on Linux. And then there's things like Lutris as well, which have really pushed that even further, especially with newer games that are using Vulkan instead of OpenGL, because Vulkan is open source. It's got more driver support for graphics card, especially from AMD. So all that stuff makes gaming on Linux easier now than it's ever been. And boy, oh boy, if you knew what gaming on Linux was like a few years ago, you knew pain.
But ladies and gentlemen, this is why you dual boot if you have a Linux machine, so you can play games.
You buy a Switch,
or a Switch, or as we said, Gamebox, because Gamebox does Gamebox mightn't be so powerful, but at least it tries and it does the best it can do. Yeah,
and it's not as like backwards compatible and stuff either. But
look, it's fine. You know, to be fair, for a while, up until I actually got level 50 on Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's the only thing I was playing was Star Wars Battlefront 2. Just sit there and just like in the hour or two I'd have free, I'd play it. Now I hit level 50 and I'm like, oh no, what do I do now? This is like, what do I do now? This is the end. I've literally done everything in this game, so I'm like, oh no. So I suppose it's good because Star Wars Rebels is coming up soon, or Rebel Squadron or something like that. Squadrons, isn't it? Yeah, Rebel.
Yeah, I think it's Rebel Squadrons.
And it's like, oh, so that game's gonna be taken off support soon. So it is what it is. But
then you just boot up a ROM of Knights of the Old Republic 2 and just dive in that hole.
Oh no, I do. Well, well, you can get it on Steam and GOG, but I wish they would actually port that to the PS4, because the only thing that I do play a lot is on the original Xbox. Because again, it's connected up to the TV that's behind me, so that TV is like unwind mode. You know, it's not like if I had it one of these monitors. I'm like, oh, I'll just check up on something, and then you go down that rabbit hole, and your gaming session is just ruined by something else. You know, Facebook has ruined gaming. It's one thing I will say, where it's like you're trying to game something, and you get a notification, and you're like looking at your phone, you're like, oh no. Yeah, and then you feel guilty.
Yet another reason to leave.
No, I just ignore people.
Fair, I can't do that. I feel bad.
Like, I'm busy.
I'm busy.
Oh, you got to find something that just takes so much of your attention that you don't even notice your phone going off. And then when you look next, it's dark outside.
And you put the phone on silent, you put it face down. You're busy. You got stuff to do.
That's fair. That's fair.
I have to say Hyrule, man.
This is the joy of something like Doom, because you just do get into a mindset of going, but one more glory kill will make me feel happy.
Especially Eternal, it's shifted a little bit from just a standard kind of first-person shooter into a bit more of a Hotline Miami way of playing, where it's just about how to clear out a room as efficiently as possible.
Oh, so, yes.
Like, and on top of that, they've added in like a whole bunch of traversal mechanics. Like, you automatically just have a double jump, like a bar swing, and a wall climb. And it's like you're just bouncing your way from wall to wall, just chucking everything you have at a demon's face. It's great.
Incredible.
Once so much chimes in with turn off notifications on Messenger, it saved my life. So it's like,
just the whole conversation, just mute it.
Yeah, just mute it. Yeah,
especially if it's group chat.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
All our group chats are muted.
Our group chat is ridiculous at some point, where you turn away and then you're like 75 messages. You're like, what happened? And it's just usually about garbage or something.
Poor Cian, he gets scarred every time. He's like,
he's offline for like 2 or 3 hours and comes back. He's like 72 messages. What happened? And you're like, oh, we got into a thing.
And we forgot how it ended.
We forgot how we got here, and we're not sorry about it.
That song doesn't usually last 3 hours.
I think I'm a bad millennial.
Garden of Eden by Iron Butterfly.
I think I'm a bad millennial. I'm so confused by group chats in general. That's fair. I think it depends on the group chat. I've been part of some bad ones and some good ones. But,
I think group chat, it's not really a millennial thing anyway. It's more of a whatever is the generation after us.
Generation Zoomers?
No, are they Zoomers? Yeah, I think that's more of a Zoomer thing. Like we had Bebo, and it was all awkward and clunky, and now everything's streamlined and you can fit everybody in it, and it's weird.
Like, I don't know, Bebo I didn't really like that much. Generation Z and Zoomers, that's the one. It's like I didn't really like Bebo, I'll be honest with you. I did like MySpace though. MySpace.
I love MySpace.
MySpace is great. Also, the first time you ever looked at like code or like that, even though it was just HTML, like you could actually change the website, and that was pretty cool. I thought that was great to be able to know how to do it.
You could embed videos in your native page. That was class.
That was great. There was some really cool stuff you could really do, and I think. Moving away, I remember how Facebook was sold to me. It was like, oh, it's like MySpace and Bebo with M&S Messenger in it. I'm like, oh, actually, that's pretty cool. But think about it. Tom gave us everything for free.
Yeah.
And didn't charge us and didn't steal our data. and we
And he
turned
was our
back on him.
first friend.
And he was our first friend,
Yeah.
you know, and we turned
really-
our back on him.
Yeah,
We turned our back on him.
But to be fair, though, Tom will always be our friend. Your life could go to hell. You could lose contact with everyone, but Tom will still be there
Somewhere.
You know?
Somewhere. Exactly. I don't know, man. Like,
I hope you're listening.
Tom
out there,
was never my friend. MySpace was before my time, guys.
Well, here's another thing about MySpace as well, right? It like existed as well where you could like upload music onto it. So a lot of bands were there.
Yeah.
It sounded like a proto SoundCloud. Like,
oh, it kind of was, but then it now has a second life as that kind of thing. Like it's a music social media, and I'm just like, yeah, Facebook is more slick and more refined, but I think MySpace had that kind of charm to it that like Bebo never reached. Bebo was just kind of like a weird in between.
Yeah.
I
think as well though, like MySpace, because like with MySpace as well, you could do blogs and stuff like that. So it's like this. It's kind of like a weird precursor to what SoundCloud and to what Tumblr would be in a weird way.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
because like I mean, a lot of the customizability stuff that you could do with your profile page, that a lot of that stuff was available with Tumblr. So,
thankfully, I was never on Tumblr because
Tumblr is a scary place.
Yeah, that was it.
Tumblr could be a scary place.
Yeah.
For any experience that I've seen with Tumblr, it was a bad place. It always seemed like a scary place.
It's like 4chan light.
Yeah, well, at least with 4chan, you know what you're getting into. But with Tumblr, it's like, oh, look at My Little Pony or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, what's this? And then you see the cum jar and you're like, what is this?
I mean, this is something that happens with a lot of places online where, you stumble down the wrong subreddit and you're going to have pain.
Well, to hear Bebo felt dangerous sometimes. I remember being approached by many middle-aged men months to month trying that in. Yeah. I don't know, fair. Like Bebo just seemed dangerous. It was just. I'm glad it was kind of a flash in the pan.
Yeah, that's very fair.
I know, but look, you know what they say? Not the internet. Everyone on the internet is a man or a cop. Know what they say?
I know I am.
Like there's no women on the internet. Everyone's a man or a cop. That's just the way it is.
Or a cat.
Or a cat. Yeah, exactly.
Or a dog pretending to be a cat, pretending to be a cop.
It's just many layers. Many layers.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look, we're going to do this cian of news anyway because, Cian's not here. And we specifically put this in here for him.
And now he gets to listen to it.
Exactly.
He gets to listen to us reported poorly.
Exactly.
Terribly.
So Christopher Eccleston, who was the first Doctor Who on the return of the show, and he's the grumpy one, and he hates
the best one,
and he hates the show, and he spent many years railing it, saying it's the worst thing he's ever done, and then it moved to him being in Thor 2 was the worst thing he ever did.
Yeah.
And now he's back apparently, but he's back in an audio drama, and that feels really cheap. So, Katie, you're playing the role of Cian here. And you're going to tell me why he's the best and why this is good.
Well, I don't know why Cian thinks he's the best, but I personally loved Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor because he didn't take himself seriously and he was always making fun of himself and he was just great.
And actually, I stand in the camp of really liking Eccleston Doctor as well.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
I think Matt Smith's the best one, but
How dare you?
It's true. What can I say?
Yeah, what I really liked about Eccleston, especially kind of like looking back on the series, he really captured that feeling of, oh yeah, this guy just came out of a war.
Yeah.
He still had that kind of Doctor flair, that kind of that oddball charm, but this was a dude that was deeply scarred.
But it was even the point because the older Doctor Who's, they were always kind of older guys. Yeah. And he was one of the first, because they'd revitalized it, he was one of the first young doctors, and they were trying to sell him as a sex symbol, and he had the female companion, and it was like, will they, won't they? But every time they almost did, he'd be like, look at me, I'm goofy looking,
That only kind of comes into stark contrast when they cast David Tennant, who's younger and hotter.
But I think if it wasn't for him, the show wouldn't have kind of taken off again. I think that's what people seem to forget. It's like,
oh, for sure.
And that's one thing that even when I was over in the 50th anniversary thing over in London a couple of years ago, they kind of made a big deal out of that, where it's like, look, you know, if it wasn't for this series, you wouldn't have had the David Tennant one, which obviously made the whole thing kind of explode, you know. Christopher Eccleston's attitude to Doctor Who reminds me of Robert Pattinson's attitude to Twilight. I did it, but I'm not proud.
Robert Pattinson's attitude to anything.
God bless him. He's a gem.
He's given out about Batman now.
Of course he is. The only thing I think he'll ever like that he did at the Lighthouse.
But like, how is it that you get to be Batman and all you do is complain?
Well, you know, if you have to pretend that you're not working on Batman while also working with Christopher Nolan, I think that's going to make someone have issues.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I think it was more a case of they needed him to bulk up to fit in the suit, and he flat out refused. He's just like, nope, not doing it.
That's my guy. Bless him.
No,
you live your life, Rob.
No, man. So he's not Batman. He's Soy Boy, man. You know, it's like
Soy Boy, man.
It's like with Batman, you want someone who like. To be fair, Ben Affleck is the most accurate comic Batman ever, because it's like, yeah, he'd kill you, and it's just like, you know, he'd flat out smash your face up. You know,
he could kill you, but he won't.
But Ben Affleck,
he does. He does. He kills enough people in that version.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, how many Batman films have there been where he hasn't killed someone?
Yeah, that's fair.
But like Ben Affleck for me is probably, I say this with a pinch of salt, but he's probably the only actor to play Batman that was a good Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, well,
that's totally fair.
Actually, you know who does it better than him? Michael Keaton.
Keaton's such a good Bruce Wayne. It helps him be Batman.
Yeah,
because he's the only Bruce Wayne that you would look at and you go, "There's no way he's Batman on sight." Like,
aren't they bringing him back? Isn't he going to be Batman?
They are. Yeah. Well, okay, all right. So the reason why I say he is because Bruce Wayne has a lot of trauma to him, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of damage there, and when you look at Michael Keaton, you're like, yeah, you know, well, probably. But then when he's in the suit, he does really Batman things. Like literally, he just punches someone, and goes, "You're going to jail," you know, and you're like, "All right, that's a Batman thing." But even certain things, there's a bit in Batman and Robin, no, not Batman and Robin, Batman Returns, when he's a penguin fires a rocket at him, and he's in his boat, and then it just missed him. He looks back and he's like, Jesus, yeah, that probably nearly hit me. And you're like, that's the most Batman thing ever, where it's just like, yeah, you know, he is dealing with some magic.
Oh, this is real. Okay.
This is real, yeah.
I want to see him play Batman the way he played Birdman.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what they're doing. So the plan with Christopher, with Michael Keaton, is to bring him back as the Samuel L. Jackson kind of character, where he's like the leader of a team of different, like, universe jumping superheroes. So basically,
it could be like a Batman Beyond kind of situation.
That's eventually what it's going to be. But that's part of it. Like this is a whole series wide thing, because okay, so on one thing, I feel like Christopher Eccleston was just an appetizer for the main course that was David Tennant.
Oh, how dare you!
Well, there you go. Controversial.
Oh, how dare you!
That looked like it wounded you, Katie.
Yeah. How could you say something so controversial yet so brave?
Exactly.
He is a well-done sirloin steak to David Tennant's fine chicken tenders. Both are good. At the same time, maybe a bit much.
Well, okay, so here's the plan with the DC thing, right? And actually, I have some news on DC that's kind of groundbreaking. But so the plan is, it's going to start with Flash, right? So Flash is going to open up the multiverse kind of thing, which means...
Please tell me they're doing Flashpoint, sorry.
They are doing Flashpoint. They are. But not only are they doing Flashpoint, but they're using it as a launch pad for their multiverse. So what that means is everything that has happened, right? And they're bringing back Michael Keaton just after Batman Returns. So that means we're going to catch up with him after Batman Returns, which is the universe that Batman Beyond is going to be based in. But before they get there, which is probably going to be a TV series, they're going to do a series of movies where he is like the anchor point of everything. So it sounds like this was the way to actually fix the DCEU. So fair play, and I'm excited because I think that will work.
If they're doing Flashpoint, we need Flashpoint Joker. We need that.
Well,
Thomas Wayne.
Well, Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Here's the thing: they haven't said Thomas Wayne yet. Everybody was expecting
Jeffrey Dean Morgan
to play him. They haven't said that yet, but I would say that they're totally going to do that. But again, if this is a multi-series kind of thing, I wouldn't be shocked if he got a spin-off.
I'm hesitant with them starting with Flashpoint because it just like what it sounds to me is just like, okay, what's the what's the biggest DC story that everyone actually knows and likes? Just grab that one. Whereas,
Kev,
I understand that it's like it's setting off a convergence point of like introducing a multiverse thing, but as a starting point, it seems kind of we're just throwing this at a wall.
Well,
no, Kev. Well, sorry, guys. Freedom. What happened was they realized they messed up, and there's no way to fix the continuity.
Yeah.
So they're just like, look, it all happened, and that's why they're doing it. Honestly, that's why they're doing it. Sorry,
as well as that, like Flashpoint itself was never a strong enough story to carry DC, but it opens the doors for everything else.
Exactly, and that's what they need to do, because the thing about it is they tried the Marvel approach and that failed epically.
They did a hackneyed Marvel approach and it failed epically. They basically did, well, we'll do 2 films and then do the Avengers film and see how that works out.
I have to say though, I'm really excited for this Snyder Cut, guys. It's going to be unbelievable. It looks great. Honestly, no, it looks. I'm so excited. I wasn't on board until I started seeing some of the concept art and the screen test and the trailer, and I'm like, this could be really good. So I don't know. I like Zack Snyder. I think he tries really hard. So
that's all anyone can.
Ed Wood. It didn't mean his films were good. So.
Yeah, but we remember Ed Wood. We're still talking about Ed Wood.
Storyboard artist.
I agree with Katie. Martha Wayne was a terrifying Joker. Yes, she was terrifying.
And she's only hinted at in the cartoon version of Flashpoint. You never actually see her, and we need Martha Wayne Joker.
But see, what's cool about this multiverse thing is it means that they don't really need to kind of worry too much about, like they did it with Crisis. Well, Crisis wasn't really that good. They have kind of tied a lot of these loose ends up, so they have actually set it up now where you can just be like, all right, cool, you can just pop in here and say, hey, which is probably what Marvel's going to do now with Doctor Strange 2 as well, and the whole Wanda and Vision series. So look, we're in for some wild times, guys. I think it's just we're so deep into the comic thing now that the whole concept of a multiverse doesn't terrify people anymore. So
it can never be worse than Endgame. Time travel was a cop-out.
Oh yeah, well, time travel is always a cop-out. Always is a cop-out.
Yeah. It's like when a wizard does it, and it was the reason why something happened in the fantasy film. You just go,
the wizard did it.
So here's the thing. So here's the rest of the news about the DC, right? So DC Comics looks like it's done, right? They laid off pretty much all their artists, and DC as a thing is pretty much finished. So they haven't said, hey, we're going to, and this happened yesterday. They just laid off all their artists basically and their designers and stuff. And this has got to do with the new merger, where they're like, hey, we're going to cut this off. So while they're not, so the big question is, what happens now? Is DC going to just stop making comics? No. According to the internal stuff, it looks like they're going to make one final go to kind of make this profitable, and then probably sell off the properties, or not sell them off, but lease them out. We're not talking Marvel because they're bought by Warner Brothers. They're owned by Warner Brothers. But we are talking, we're going to see a lot less comics. And the reason for this is, one, the pandemic has pretty much killed stores as such. Everything, yeah. But this was coming for a while. Even with the digitalization of everything, they also had their own streaming service, which is not very good. And that's where we are.
One of the big problems as well with the streaming service is that HBO Max has all that stuff as well anyway. Yeah. So what they've done effectively is that they've made it so that anyone who could use that streaming service just for DC shows is basically wasting their money. Yeah. Because they can get that on HBO Max.
But as I said, there was a time when I spent €30 a week on comics, right? And then I went down to just spending maybe €20 a month. Since the pandemic, I haven't bought a comic book. I don't miss it. It's not something that I miss doing, and that's a bad sign. I'd much rather pick up a trade or an older book. So I'm like, if I was in the comic industry, either working as a retailer or working in the industry, I'd be terrified because I'm like, yeah, this is the end. And I really just feel like we're getting to that point. So, well, what do you guys think? Do Do you guys think we are at the end of comics, or do you guys still read like I know we've all read comics, but do you guys actively read them? That's my kind of question. Or do you have any interest in what's going on?
Not terribly. Like, it's just I could never really kind of get it. I never got in on the ground floor when I was younger, so like I never got into it coming in. Like as I grew up, so like I only really jumped into like the major like tentpole series, like some of the major kind of like Marvel DC stuff, Image stuff.
Yeah.
So like I never got into the comic scene. But yeah, it definitely feels it's been on the like it feels as if though it's been on the decline for a while, and the market really is in more indie stuff.
Yeah.
Especially cheaper stuff, man. Yeah, comics have also just kind of gotten, for the most part, too damn expensive.
Yeah, like you're talking nearly €5 for a book. What about you, Katie? What do you think?
Like, I used to read comics kind of when I was a kid, and that was purely because my brother would get them first, read them, and then give them to me. And then as I got older and I started working and being an artist and not having disposable income, it got to the point where it was like, okay, I can't justify this anymore.
Yeah,
as much as I loved it, it's like it was, I hate saying, an unnecessary expenditure. And then I got into video games and stuff. So I would rather something that I can interact with, because that kind of takes my mind away somewhere else, away from work. So when it comes down to it, it's like video games or comics, it's going to be video games.
And that's it. And I think, Brin, you'd kind of be the same as me, where you've read a bunch of books but wouldn't be actively collecting anymore, right?
No, but I mean, for me, it's always been a case of I used to, I had my books that I actively bought until the comic book shop I went to in Cork closed down.
Yeah. And
then it was just like, well, I guess I'm not buying comics anymore. And then, from there, for me, I fell out of the loop of buying. And then once you fall out of that loop of buying, you don't really pick it back up again unless you're like looking for something very specific. Like, that's it.
And that's what happens. That's what happens. Yeah.
For me, it was a case of like, the last couple, when I got back in, one of the last things I actively spent money on getting all the trades for was Transmetropolitan, which is my favorite comic series of all time. But because I knew that's one of those things where I go, well, this is like whatever, however expensive it is, it doesn't matter because I'm going to read it over and over again. And I'd rather read that with paper than get digital editions. But like now I'm at the point where I will look for specific runs. But even then, there's runs out there that I want to read, but they're too expensive. Like here's the other week. Just to finish off my point, just the other week I was looking at there was an anthology trade for the Dark Multiverse in DC, and I was like, I have to get that. And then I saw how much it was, and I was like, don't have to read it that badly, and put it back down again.
Well, that's the thing. Mudslum brings up two good points in the chat. The first one, New 52 being cancelled. One of the that was a really good series. It was a really good series, but DC kept doing this thing where they kept rebooting the franchise, the series over and over again,
and faster and faster.
Yeah, and one, it brings in a whole, like, I get it. It leaves that open-ended point for people to jump in, but that's not how comics work. You can just jump in and read back, and that's the fun of it. So that kind of isolated.
As well as that, like, stop rebooting the same superheroes. If you want to do something new, do something new.
Yeah, no, repeating the same franchise always just made the scene just kind of seem impenetrable, because you're like, where do I possibly jump into this?
Yeah, it kind of did the opposite of what they wanted to do. Sorry, Brent.
This is what the idea of Elseworlds was, though, is that you could do these random, like, I was speaking for DC Comics, like for Marvel they had What If, but like for the whole idea of Elseworlds is that you would be able to do alternate lines and do alternate ideas for stories. And like, because like, yeah, I mean, like there's always going to be stories, especially like, I mean, some of the most celebrated stuff in comics tends to be self-contained enough that you don't need a huge continuity. Like just using Batman as example, like stuff like the Long Halloween, Dark Victory, Hush, they all link into each other. but you could read them all independently and not really have a feel for what came before because you don't need it.
You don't need to. Well, here's another thing, right? Sepon Sedic makes a lot of his comics free online because he knows not everyone can afford modern day comic books. He's the real MVP. Like, here's the thing: what you said, all those books are correct and really good recommendations, Brin. But the thing about it is, you can go and get those trades, and it's been 20 years since those books have come out. Yeah. Nothing, with the exception of maybe Zack Snyder's books, would kind of equal it. And even then, you know, they've rebooted so much, so it's kind of hard to. But like, if someone asked me what comics should I read, I'd probably mention those ones. I wouldn't, and maybe Court of Owls and Black Mirror. But other than that, I wouldn't really recommend anything from the past couple of years.
Yeah, well, I think that's been like the big challenge as well. Is that like I was a diehard Spider-Man fan, for years, and it's been one of those things where because of a lot of the decisions they made with the character in the last 10 years, it just made me go, well, I don't want to read this.
Yeah,
I'm not even interested in keeping up with it anymore.
Yeah, and see, that's what some people have said. They said that a lot of the agenda pushing, for want of a better word, with comics, they've like torn off people. And look, I hate using that word, so please forgive me. Yeah. But I know a lot of people who would say, "Oh, I want this," and they don't buy books, and it's like, well, you're not buying the books, and this is who they're aiming towards. Yeah. And you violate your audience. No one's buying the books then.
So like the general feeling I have towards a lot of like the quote unquote agenda orientated stuff is I don't see any demand for it. All I see is across the board discrimination. So all it's doing is annoying everyone. Yeah. Like, that's because
I say it too.
You know, it makes people who hate the idea of, you know, like they've got, what was it, like some of the new characters they created were like Safe Space and but even Safe Space on its own, but like even Safe Space on its own, who's that for? Like legitimately, who's that for?
It just came off like they were being insulting to.
Yeah, but it's like they were trying to be topical, but like, you know,
without having any foot in the game, without knowing a goddamn thing about what they're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what I say is, like, you know what you guys said about rebooting characters. And that's why in the indies it's good, because you can explore these new stories without going, well, pissing off an entire fan base. Now here's one for right question though. I saw someone on Twitter raise recently, why can't they go back to cheap newsprint? Nobody is demanding premium glossy paper. Well, the argument for that would be, well, everything is digital, but you're still going to not pay that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a premium product. As Katie, you said, it's not an essential product. So when you buy a book, you expect a certain thing, but that's kind of expensive. So I think there's two things going on here. There's one, there's the cost. There's two, what we kind of said last week with the demand away from physical goods going more digital, you know, and also then they need to focus on storytelling rather than trying to chase the dragon, you know. And don't get me wrong, like I will read anything, you know, and I did, and I bought comics for consistently about 5 years, as in like spending €30 for about 5 years. It's why I have literally 6 long boxes in the other room. I can't get rid of them. I have 6 long boxes.
It's actually funny though that you mention the kind of the newsprint thing, because another factor, like working in a bookshop myself, another factor I've noticed that like really has kind of declined comic sales has been the uptick in manga sales.
Yes, that's
which is much cheaper.
Yeah.
And like, especially with the rise of like these gargantuan series like Hero Academia and Demon Slayer recently, like they've just taken off and become like the new flagships.
But see, the thing about that is it's a complete opposite to Western comics, right? It's focused on stories. It knows what it is. It doesn't really push and look, again, I don't like to use the word, but agenda, right?
Well, no, it can. Like I sell a handful of pretty kind of diverse comics, and
I'm not talking. I'm not talking about diverse comics. I'm talking about stuff being done solely to pop a rating. Pop an interest. You know, I'm not talking about like, you know, a series that's what it's based on.
Don't get me wrong. There is stuff in there. There is stuff that's selling that is chasing trends, like the Isekai transported to another realm thing. Man, that has been rampant over the past couple of years in like terms of manga production. So like, there's trends being chased, just different trends.
Here's a question actually as well, because you would know working in a bookshop. Monster wants to know, why is manga so much cheaper?
It's like, black and white, so there's no coloring. It's much cheaper, like paper quality. It's not glossy. It's like newsprint, and it tends to be just kind of smaller volume size. Like it's about A5. It's size of smaller, like a small kind of novel. It's literally just cheaper all around the board and kind of more regular. Like,
but you see, the thing that I find weird about that is that like it's not like these kind of books didn't exist in Western comics. Like A History of Violence is written in the exact same way as that.
Yeah.
So why is there not more A History of Violence has been written and being like produced outside of like, I mean, like History of Violence was done on Vertigo, which I mean, how long ago did Vertigo die? Like,
sure, even V for Vendetta as well, the same thing. Yeah.
You know, but it's, I mean, like this is one of those areas where I just find it very weird because, like, it's not like, you know, I mean, like it's not like there isn't a demand for, you know, one-shot stories and
Mouse as well. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
that's
Mouse
true,
is great as well.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic.
You know, I think that's on the Leaving Cert now.
Is it?
I think it's on. I think it's like it's available for selection in the comparative text.
You see, I think what happened there, Brin, to pick up your point, we went through the 90s, and remember the 90s, guys, where they had the glossy print and the variants and all that kind of stuff. So people kind of got used to it. It's just this unsustainable chasing the ghost kind of thing, you know. But look, actually, Katie, you said something last week, and I wanted to see if it kind of checks in this, right? So you said that you like digital like products as such, you know, compared to VHS players.
Mm-hmm.
On this specific topic, if I was to hand you a comic or something digitally that you could read on a tablet, what would you prefer?
So that, for me, that's kind of a trick question now, because if I'm going to read something, I much prefer the feel of a book. But when I'm done with it, I don't want to keep it.
So libraries would suit you better.
Libraries would suit me, yeah, because like I don't have a lot of storage space, but I still do enjoy the feel of a book.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of the problem now that I think they haven't overcome, and this is why it's probably failing as well. Like it's a product that once you're finished with it, like an actual comic, you bag and board it, and then it lives in a long box.
Yeah,
that's what happens. Like, so it's kind of hard to get rid of, you know.
Outside of like a handful of books, like. I mean, I've read out of what outside of the numerous trades and stuff that I have, I've reread.
Trades are slightly different,
but like I mean, even just taking a trade as an example, where it's like a 6-issue thing. Like I've reread History of Violence, I've reread Transmetropolitan, I've reread V for Vendetta and Watchmen, and the Batman books mentioned previously. I've reread them, but after them, that list of what I've reread gets very, very thin very, very quickly, because the amount of books where it's anything more than just, oh, that was enjoyable, is like the amount of books that are just like, oh yeah, I enjoyed that, and that's all I have to say on them.
See, there's
vast.
There's no genre defining comics, with the exception of some Batman books. But again, it's a Batman book. You know what I mean?
But here's one here. I'm not even looking for something to be genre defining. Like, I love Maximum Carnage from the mid-90s. But Maximum Carnage is not a story that defines Spider-Man in any significant way. It's not even really significant or emblematic of its time period. But I enjoy the story, even though the ending to it is trite. Like,
the Clone Saga is terrible.
Would it be fair to say that the comics industry is probably also, or had also started going through a superhero fatigue as well?
I would say so.
I'd say so, yeah. I don't know exactly when it'll come out, but like you were talking about the fact there hasn't been any flagship superhero series coming out. Like, the biggest series I can think of from the past 10 years would be Saga.
No.
So like it seems like that the comics industry now, or at least, you know, the kind of the demand for it was moving away from superheroes and something to stuff kind of more off kilter, which also shows why Image kind of started becoming such the massive company it is.
If you look at the big hits in terms of series in the last 10, 15, 20 years, East of West, Saga, Why Last Man, like just to name, like The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
all of them are. I'm pretty sure all of them are Image, and like, I mean, that kind of just shows that like the demand is gaining more and more towards what you're saying, where it is going away from being superheroes. which is so weird when superheroes have never been more mainstream than they are.
Here's one for you. Here's one for you. What do you think about this comment? I would argue that nowadays a comic book is also merch. In a time when everything is digital, it's nice to have a physical object linking you to the franchise or fandom that you like. What I would say to that before you jump in, comic books and even the comic cons, which is what we probably would have been at this weekend, just gone. The smallest section are comics. You go to a Comic Con and there's like 2 long boxes and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to go to a quiet place in a comic box, I'll go over to the comic sellers. Yeah. I'd be like, hey guys, how's it going? You know, it's like, it seems like superheroes and comics are now the lowest thing, even in a time when they've never been popular. And this is what they've said with Marvel. Marvel apparently is going to go this way too, where the properties and IPs are going to be huge, but the comics, I think we're seeing them. I think we're getting to the end of this, guys.
Yeah. I don't think we're getting to the end of the medium by any stretch.
No, but as it exists today, as this massive thing.
Yeah. I mean that's I still think that remains to be seen. I think the idea of them being sold in specific brick and mortar shops, that's gone. That's done. That's finished. Okay. But like, you see, like again, there's a bunch of different there's a bunch of different materials that there still is a demand, even if it is a small demand. There is a demand for physical material in it being sold. And the best way to see what happens when that physical material loses its demand is look at what GameStop are doing.
Yeah. That's fair.
Even specifically towards comics, like look at what Forbidden Planet are kind of doing.
Yep. Yeah. Look at Forbidden Planet. Look at Tower Records, for God's sake. Like, you know,
Katie, like it's half a merchandise store in front of the stuff they actually used to sell. Sorry, Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, go on, Katie.
I was just going to say, I think part of the problem is because, like you were saying, superheroes have never been more popular than they are now. And I think that's part of the problem because you've got movies, you've got TV shows, you've got video games. And a lot of, like myself personally, a lot of people don't have the time to sit and read. And they're like, well, why would I read a book when I can see it? It's right there in front of me.
Yeah.
But it's also, that's a really good point, though, because we're also at a point now where, like, I mean, we're also part of a generation that considers a TV show of Batman to be the definitive Batman. You know, we're the same generation feels the same way about a specific Spider-Man show.
Yeah.
Like, when you get to a point where you're not looking at the medium it originated from as being the definitive version of it, that's a sign that that there is a disconnect between what the fan base, how the fan base feels about feels about it. Like, I mean, again, look at Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles started as comics, but how many people, if you mention the Ninja Turtles, think of comics?
Yeah,
you know,
I think that's a very good point as well, and it's something that we do kind of forget, and it's something I think this is a perfect storm of things. You know, it's not just one specific thing; it's like an array of things.
Absolutely,
and we kind of hit all of them. I think all of us are right, but it's something that like it's been coming for a long time. And while the diehards is like clutching to your comic, going, "This is my comic," you know, this is what I love. But this
is my comic. There are many like it, but this one is mine.
But you know, and then you're kind of sitting there going, "But wait, most people would rather play a video game." And even the kids, like, you know, I have younger cousins and they love comics. One of them's going into actually designing comics and stuff like that, and that's great. But how many, you know, how much work is he going to get, right? Is there going to be an industry here? Probably not. Go into game design, which makes more sense. You know, this kind of stuff. We are the last generation to kind of remember a world before the internet, but then be raised in the internet, and this is kind of like the last gasp, I think, of this. Katie, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just on that point. I was just going to say, like, when you have somebody like, say, Rocksteady announce a new Batman game, and everybody goes nuts, how many of those people would do the same if they were to announce a Batman comic?
Very few. And look, and the sales show that, you know, like, as much as I love going into a comic book shop, to be fair, you go in and it's mostly a toy shop now at this point. But I like going to, again, Comic-Con is like case in point. You walk into Comic-Con, you know, back in the before time, and you know how much
before the event,
before the event, exactly.
Remaining
how much of it would be comics? Not that much. How many people in there would have read a comic? Very few, or it would be one of 5. It's just a weird thing, you know. It's. I think we've all known it. We've all like been aware of it, and we've seen it in other medium. But now, but now it's like, oh, right, we're going into a recession, and cuts need to be made.
Think it's definitely just going to be a very major shift in the culture of the industry, and I think it's going to go the way of, like, you know, you're going to have the juggernauts of like Marvel, DC. They're going to just collapse or adapt and change. But it's going to switch now to a much more independent, creator focused industry.
Well, what they're also saying as well, especially with the customer focused, Kev. Customer focused as far as like getting rid of the middleman. So what part of this plan is, the guy who's actually doing this, he's a hatchet man, and his whole thing is, we're going to cut. So we're going to take away the middleman. We're going to take away the ink and printer. We're just going to give it directly to the consumer. So you'll be going onto Amazon and buying your comics directly rather than going to a brick and mortar. So that's kind of the big.
So like I see a lot of like independent comic creators. I see it now. Like a lot of comic creators I follow on Twitter are just doing it just through Patreon. Like that's so it's much more creator focused as opposed to it like brand focused.
Yeah,
it's like weird. You follow a comic creator because you think that they're cool, instead of following a series.
I think it's kind of like what happened with the record industry, I suppose, you know, where you'd get signed to a 6 record deal and then you'd be a millionaire or whatever. And now it's like, oh, great, you got to tour or sell merch or you're done. You know, and that's basically kind of what it is. You know, like digital stuff is great, but it eventually comes and collects heads. And particularly when the chips are down,
but this, again, it's disruptive technology. It's not, you know, this is what it does.
Exactly.
It just took a bit longer to disrupt comics specifically. But again, I mean, one of the things that was interesting was that, like, when we first heard about Marvel and DC pulling away from mortar shops, we also heard about Dark Horse and Image, and there was another publisher as well that stepped up and said, no, we're staying with them. And, you know,
well, like, remember who owns DC and Marvel.
Yep.
You know, they're not Marvel and DC anymore. They're Disney owned, they're Warner Brothers owned. They're these big, massive corporations.
I mean, Warner Brothers has owned DC forever.
Yeah, you know, but that's what I mean. Like, it's, you know, when the chips are down and they're not selling, well, you know, it is what it is.
Adapt or die.
Exactly. All right, guys, we have 10 minutes. We have 15 minutes. So we can either BS for a while, or we can start Simpsons season 8 and see how we go. What do you guys want to do?
I don't think 10 minutes is enough to give to a service just how much I love Hank Scorpio.
Hank Scorpio, yeah. I think we should save Hank Scorpio.
I think as well, though, I don't think we have enough time to really talk about the Halloween episode either.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, season 8 is so good that I didn't want to rush it.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that we, like, for a show that we didn't have any real plan for, we kind of talked about it. Which we do
the waffle quite well.
we do the waffle quite well. So look, next week we will do a laser focused season 8 series. Oh, Muslim votes for the BS. So there we go. So that's what's going to be.
Well, like there is some sweet hot BS on this show plan still to do.
Yeah.
What's this Zoom horror movie, Darragh?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot. Wow, thank you for reminding me. All right,
you're not looking at the show plan.
I'm not. I got distracted.
You wrote it.
I know. So look, next week we will do a laser focused season 8 Simpsons review, where, you know, hopefully we'll have Cian in. Okay, so look, I love Shudder, right? And Shudder is brilliant, right? It's fantastic. Please give me free counts, but Shudder. We're sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
You can watch Shudder on the Brave browser.
On the Brave browser, exactly. Okay, so I was like, what's this? This is wild, right? And I heard rumors that they had made their own movies, because Shudder is like Netflix now. They're making their own content. And sure enough, there is a 50-minute horror movie shot completely on Zoom, made by Shudder. It's based in England, right? It's called Host. So if you're looking for it, if you don't have Shudder and you want to theoretically, for educational purposes, sail the high seas, type in Host 2020 and it will pop up. Of course, this is theoretically and for educational purposes. Yeah, and I didn't know what to expect. And literally, it's a Zoom call where 4 girls do a seance with their mate he's in England. And okay, so straight off the bat, important question: is it as good as Unfriended or Unfriended 2? Because I genuinely love those movies. I love those movies too. It's actually kind of better.
Unfriended is awful.
Oh no, Unfriended's great. Come on. Oh no,
the Facebook ghost.
Oh yeah, or Unfriended 2 with the hacking ghosts. I loved it. It was great. Darknet. What's Darknet? Oh, it's so cringy. But yeah, like it's actually better because it's way more focused, right? It's more believable. Like it is a ghost story, possession kind of thing, but the way they do it is actually way more kind of grounded. It's less BS-y, right? It's more kind of like, hey, look, action A leads to action B, which leads to C, which culminates in D, and everyone dies, right? It's
spoiler alert.
Well, no, that's not a spoiler, but that's what I mean. Like, it's not everyone dies, but it is. It's very good. And what I'm shocked about it is they shot it all during quarantine, right? So in England, they literally shot this entire movie over Zoom, and they frame it within the 40-minute free Zoom window, which is super
brilliant.
fun. It's brilliant. It's really good. And basically, the whole premise is that they're doing a seance to hang out, but they haven't seen each other. But the actual the seance woman has bad internet, so she has to leave. But her friend gets bored, and she makes up its spirit, and then the spirit joins. And because it's not actually a real person, the seance lady's like, "Oh, you've invited in a fake entity who's using that fake thing as a way in." And it's just really good. Like the way it's shot is super interesting. It's more interesting than Unfriended, but kind of feels like it. But the fact that you literally do, like, you're watching this stream now, everything is going on in the background. It never leaves, it never moves, it never changes, but it's so dynamic around it. It's very, very clever. It's really, I would say it's if you haven't seen it, definitely go out your way to watch it. Even if you're not a horror fan, it's definitely commendable. And it's, the fact that Shudder went out and did something like this, it's very cool. And it's very, one, it's clever, and two, it also kind of ties onto the whole fact that like Zoom became the biggest meme of quarantine, and he went off and worked into a horror movie. It's great.
Does one of the characters in it have a Simpsons background?
No. Here's the thing though. One of the characters uses a video background, right? And basically she's like, look, I cloned myself. And then that comes into play later on. It's very, very good. It's very good.
Awesome.
It's very
Nothing will ever beat Cam, in my opinion.
Cam is great. Now I was going through Amazon Prime to see the trash fires that was there, and then you said, "Have you seen Cam?" I'm like, "No," and it's on Netflix. Tell the listeners what Cam is like, because this is brilliant.
So Cam is basically about this cam girl, and she's trying to get up the ranks of being like the best girl who makes the most money. But for some reason or another, when she gets to a certain level of popularity, her account becomes hacked by some kind of spirit that pretends to be her, and it locks her out. Yeah. And it's just freaky.
I thought it was weird.
Yeah. I loved it. And look, if you haven't seen it, definitely watch Cam. It's on Netflix. What, like, because Katie, when you said it to me, I was like, okay, this is good. But then when it started changing, it got really, really good. Most of them, I don't think I completely understood Cam. Parts of it went completely over my head, but it was excellent. I kind of felt the same way. I didn't really get it. I thought they were going for a supernatural thing, or was your man hacking? But it turns out this spirit just chooses popular cam girls to kind of absorb. I think that's the story, right?
Maybe it just needs attention.
Yeah.
I don't think it was bad. I think I went in expecting a kind of trashy movie, and then just was surprised by just how decent and just weird it was. Again, didn't expect.
But how classy it is,
non-entity. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it's like it's really classy.
It is.
It actually respects the cam girl profession as a way.
Yeah, it's like, now, to be fair, there's bits of it, and we can't really mention it because we're on in the middle of the day in Dublin. But there's one scene in particular where you're like, man, that's pretty graphic. Like, it's really graphic, I like the cinematography. It added near vibe. It was a very eerie film. It did have that really unique cinematography. And if you haven't seen it, it's only like an hour and a half. I definitely say check that out. Give Zoom, Host. That's what it's called. It's called Host. give that a go. Guys, you'll love it. If you're a fan of this show, you'll definitely like it. It gets my top recommendation. But Cam, if you have Netflix, is definitely one to check out. It's a super good movie that honestly you won't be expecting to be as good as it is, because that's going to do it. We've managed to fill a show of entire BS.
Yeah,
but we planned
it's amazing what we can do when we don't follow a show plan.
We did follow the show plan almost to the letter. We just didn't do the Simpsons.
Accidentally followed a show plan.
Followed half the show plan.
Muslim, thank you for streaming, guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and night. Thank you very much, Muslim, for chiming in. We always appreciate it. All right, so Brin, when is your show coming out?
Soon. It's like the new running gag. It's exactly. I've got a show that won't exist.
It's called Chinese Democracy.
Yeah,
and we're working on it.
Yeah, it's like George R. Martin's dragons in Game of Thrones. It's coming.
It's Winds of Winter. It's coming.
It's coming.
He's right.
Okay, Katie, what about you? What have you got coming up for us this week?
Doing it for the exposure is still going. We had 2 episodes last week. Another one this week is coming tomorrow, or time traveling 2 days ago. And we have about a month's worth of artists left. We're still looking for people for the September into winter lineup. So if you know any artists, tell them to email us at nerdtoknowmedia.com with the heading Exposure Podcast, because otherwise I won't see them.
Awesome. And Kev?
On the Crash Course, this month's episode is in production. We will be talking about the sci-fi time travel escapades of Steins Gate. I finished my rewatch today and my notes are incomprehensible, so I gotta fix them. I gotta sort them out. Time travel gets weird, you guys.
And I'm going to promise to be there.
You're totally going to be there.
We're going to see if that actually happens.
Yeah, hopefully. Darragh's going to be there. Brin show's going to be there. The whole show's going to be there.
Everyone's going to be there.
I won't be there, but my show will be there.
But yeah, no, that's same as always. First Monday of what month is it now? First Monday of September.
Awesome.
So a couple of weeks off.
Looking forward to that. It's gonna be always. I really enjoy listening to it, and I always regret not being there. But I always forget when it's on because I don't even know what day it is. So
it's on the calendar. Like I know, scheduled out at the start of every month.
I know, but I always forget.
Darragh doesn't sleep.
That's true. I don't. And it's just like, oh, okay, this is today. But guys, look, I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. We will be back, of course, every single Wednesday. We stream at 9 p.m. here on the YouTube channel, Nerd to Know Media. Also on Periscope if you're on Twitter, and also on Twitch. So guys, if you're watching this, please subscribe, like the bell, all that good stuff. It really means a lot. It helps out the channel a lot. And we'll be back next week here on Nerd to Know Media. We have a show pretty much going up every single day of the week. So leave a comment below. Let us know what you think. And we'll be back next week here on Phoenix 92.5 FM to review The Simpsons. We promise this time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.